Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name's Soleil and I garden in Zone 5B in mid-Michigan, and today we're going to be doing our weekly walkabout and tour. It has been a warm and strange week with all sorts of weird air pollution going on, but I'm definitely happy to be outside this evening as it has calmed down a little bit so I can take you through the garden and show you some of the things that are blooming. It's definitely starting to be hydrangea season, so let's start taking a look at some of the blooms. Well, we'll just start right here in this garden near the fountain. And the fountain is not on today because we do need to clean it. But I think things are looking really pretty right here. I'm really enjoying these incredible hydrangeas. They have just started coming into full bloom at this point and showing the beautiful white bountiful blooms. We have so many blooms all throughout this garden bed right now. We have some blooms coming back on our azure snow salvias over here, and we have phlox and penstemon going on in this garden bed, and of course that beautiful blue geranium coming right through and up and over the top of the incredible hydrangea. Really pretty. You can see our planters are looking really nice. I am definitely enjoying those, and the limelights that are the hydrangeas in them have budded up so strongly. I think during this week they'll begin to open up. We're starting to see some blooms on the sedums along this rock wall right here, which we don't show very often in the videos, but I thought I would show it again this week just because of the blooms that are coming on. Getting some really nice new growth on this juniper right here, which is really a nice low blue rug juniper. I still don't have any blooms on my butterfly bushes yet, but this should be the month that they come out in July. I think this planter is looking really pretty right now. We have a PG hydrangea cutting in here that I took a couple years ago, so this is its second year growing on, and then we have the Angelina sedum in it that is blooming really pretty right now. So the mock orange has finished blooming, and we had some blooms on the spireas this week, but it has been very warm, and even though we got some rain, it hasn't been a lot, so things are still a bit dry right now because it's been constantly windy as well, and that just kind of desiccates the plants a bit. We still have some blooms on our roses right here. These are all the rage, and lots of new buds coming. I do need to come through and kind of deadhead out some of the spent blooms. They will put on rose hips though. And over here you'll see we have lots of buds on these lilies, so we'll probably see lots of those coming up next week. I'm sure they'll begin to open tomorrow because we have lots of warm weather on the way. Probably going to be in the 90s this whole week. You can see some tiny buds on this berry white hydrangea. That's going to be beautiful as well. As you can see, our grass is still a little worse for the wear, but it definitely has some green in it still. I'm really hoping that we continue to get some thunderstorms this week to bring us some fresh rain. The rain really does make such a big difference. We have our lavender right now is starting to bloom. This is the Sweet Romance variety. And right here on our quickfire hydrangea, they're starting to open up their blooms. Isn't that pretty? Panicle hydrangeas are amazing. Now over here, definitely our verbenas have put on quite a bit of growth, and I'm seeing buds on those as well. And we're starting to see the blooms open on this Let's Dance Can Do hydrangea, and I think it's going to be like a dark pink. That's kind of the tone that the edges of the petals are taking on the blooms, so it'll be fun to see how that really comes out. Our strawberry Sunday hydrangea right here is just covered in teeny tiny buds. So I think that's going to take at least another week to open up, but who knows? Like I said, with these really hot temperatures that we're going to be getting, things do tend to really spring forward. Isn't this a gorgeous combination right here? The Étoile de Violet clematis right here is just stunning this year. So many blooms all over it. It is just amazing. And I love that kind of deep moodiness of that with the beautiful red rose. And the arborvitae looks great with it too. It will be so amazing if all three of those, the hydrangea and the clematis and the rose, start blooming at the same time. Wouldn't that be awesome? So our sedum is blooming right now. I will likely be cutting that back sometime later on this week because it only blooms for a short period of time. And the rudbeckias that we planted are looking amazing. I'm so happy with that addition. That will carry us right into the fall. This basket is looking really nice. The colors are going great together. And if you recall, last week I trimmed back my salvia. Right here, they were the Violet Riot, and I cut them right back to the ground, and you can see we have some nice new growth coming back up now. In this part of the long border, you can't avoid being mesmerized by the daisies. And all three of these daisy mounds are probably about 3 feet tall. And these are the sweet daisy, birdie daisy, sweet daisy, birdie daisy. That's right. You say daisy twice in the name here. But they are doing great. We definitely have lots of bugs that are enjoying the petals here. And our Eden Rose is definitely kind of going over at this point. So I've been deadheading it, and I need to do a little bit more this weekend. And then we'll wait and see if we get any more blooms. Our Clematis Comtesse du Bouchard back here has some really pretty blooms on it. Not a ton, but this is only its second year. Last year's when I planted it out into the garden. So it's really its first full year being in the ground. So I think that's going to be a really lovely color in this garden bed. I did move the sedum to here. It was in the front, and I moved the deutzia in front of it because they are much lower growing. And that actually opened up a little bit of space for this Pugster Blue butterfly bush. This area is going to continue to get a little bit of revamping. I'm not completely happy with it right now, so yeah, definitely thinking about what I want to do with it and keep it moving forward with the garden design. Some things still have to grow on and fill in there. And sedum is definitely looking great this time of year. Now down here, I had told you in a previous video I was going to show you this. This is a very small, probably 4-inch tall plant. It can get a little taller than that, I think, if you grow it in part shade. But this is the cross between the Virginia and the Muckdenia. And so they call this Muckgenia. And I think it's really cute and pretty. All of the hydrangeas that are the panicle varieties in the garden right now are definitely just putting on buds. And we have all of our daylilies also working on putting out their buds. So things are about to get pretty floriferous, as if they aren't enough already. So let's just kind of come over here and I'll show you what the cannas are looking like here, along with the honeysuckle, because I think it's still looking really good. The honeysuckle is definitely blooming quite well, and the cannas have taken to their new pots very well also. Still waiting for some blooms on them, but I think those are going to bloom. And then I had planted some Snapdragons at their base there, the Potomac orange, so I think that's going to be a really great look with all the kind of bright colors in those pots. So you can see we have a little bit of green in the lawn over here as well. Our golden tiara hostas are still looking good, but we are just getting into July. I mean, really just starting July, and usually July and August are when things start to get quite hot and maybe a little bit dry, but humid. So we'll see how they handle it this year. They definitely need to be divided. We're still getting lots of blooms on the violet penstemon though in here, which is really beautiful. Now the firelight hydrangea here also is putting on its buds. They're definitely pretty small yet. I did cut back the catchfly in here, the variegated catchfly. You can see all the really pretty tiny blooms on these heucheras right now. Isn't that magical? They're so dainty, but the pollinators just love them, and you'll see these giant bumblebees crawling around on these thin little wiry stems. It's so cute. Things are looking good in this whole garden bed right here, and I'm definitely pleased with the growth that I'm seeing on the boxwood topiary in this corner. It continues to do well this year. I think it's definitely going to continue to fill out between this year and probably next year. And I'm being able to do a little bit of clipping on it. It still is not the right shape yet, but it's coming along. Sometimes we have to be a little bit patient with our gardens, right? I did come through and do a little bit of trimming on these evergreen shrubs, which are tiny in here, which you may or may not notice this time of year because they're just kind of tucked in here. And these are a golden variegated euonymus. And there's a few of them just kind of scattered throughout this garden bed, and it's a nice little evergreen shrub to have in the garden in the wintertime. The apples are still doing good. I just got those little bags off Amazon, and they're being well protected by them so far. We have some new blooms in this garden bed here as we see the banana cream 2 daisies start to open up. They have a really beautiful creamy yellow color to them. Isn't that sweet? Right now our pansies are looking like they need a little bit of water in this garden bed, but they have taken quite well to being planted in the ground overall. And we have this amazing pink phlox. This is the opening act phlox, and they open up much sooner than many of the other garden phlox that I have that are, you know, more old-fashioned, if you will. And so this ultra pink variety is one of the first ones to open up in my garden, along with the pinkadot, the blush, and what's the other one I have? Oh, just white, opening act white. This is a little hottie, panicle hydrangea. We planted this one last fall, and it's looking pretty good. It's a bit small still right now. Coming back here though, we have that beautiful hydrangea that we planted into the ground. This is the Cape Lookout variety, and we're already starting to see that initial bloom that started out green, and then it kind of fades to a little bit of green, starting to put on that blush tone, and that's what it will do. It will be kind of a blush pink after it goes through the phases of green and white. Now I've cut back the foxglove in this garden bed because it was looking rather shabby with the lack of rain. So we'll see if I get some additional blooms off the side shoots, because they are definitely putting out some new growth already. And this is another one of the little hottie hydrangeas right here, and it was getting a bit shaded by these foxgloves as well, so I wanted to make sure it could grow on. We're starting to see some of the blooms on the astilbes in this garden bed. These are the Visions pink astilbe. You can see some of the pansies we planted a few weeks ago in this garden bed are looking beautiful up against that Hakona Chloe grass. We don't have any blooms going on the dark side of the moon astilbe yet, but we do have some blooms on this Annabelle hydrangea, which does look like it could use a little bit of water. The Jetstream hydrangeas are still putting on their blooms. They just keep going. We have another one on this side, and this one gets more sun, so you can see the blooms are a little bit bigger. They actually kind of seem to like a mix for me. The ones that are in full sun have a little bit smaller blooms, and so do the ones in pretty full shade. Our ripple Virginia is looking pretty. And this hosta is just giant, you guys. So big. All of them are this year, really. Got so much rain early on in the season, it really set them up for success. The hostas like that a lot. So I thought these were the powwow white coneflowers, but apparently they are the Cleopatra variety, which is kind of a buttery yellow. That's the primary color of yellow that I have in my garden. If I buy it, it's usually kind of that creamy color. Just look at that foliage combination here. So many different shapes and shades of green and blue here. It's wonderful. And we have more of the Jetstream hydrangea blooms in this garden bed. And you'll see I kind of staked up my witch hazel because it was leaning over a bit and I want it to grow upright more so that I can continue to prune it more into a tree form than a shrub form. So I think that will definitely help it to grow in that way. I just love having garden paths. I was really excited to start beginning to, put them in when I did it years ago. And as they continued to, be completed over a period of time, which it probably took me 5 years to complete all of the garden paths back here. It was just kind of a process of slowly working my way through the back garden. I just love walking through the garden now and having a little trail to go on. Everything's looking really lush over here, and this pink diamond hydrangea tree is starting to open its buds. I'm excited to see that one. I didn't actually see blooms on that one last year. I bought it in the fall. It was a clearance one. And what a great buy that was. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the blooms. I hope they're somewhat like the Diamond Rouge hydrangea that I have, because those are really beautiful. So this hydrangea also looks like it could use a little bit of water as well. I still keep hoping for us to get more rain, but it just doesn't seem to come, so I'll have to get out some sprinklers this weekend. We definitely have lots of buds on the purple coneflowers in this garden bed. They're very tall this year. Some years they do get really tall. I would say that one's probably almost 3 feet tall. I'm going to need to start cutting back the dianthus because their blooms are starting to fade. But they bloom for a good 3 to 4 weeks, so they are really well worth their weight in the garden. Now I'm not sure if you trim back the Boom Chocolata geranium. I'm thinking that you probably do, because you'll probably get more flowers if you do that. That's kind of how I treat my other hardy geraniums, but if you have experience growing it, let me know what you do with yours and how well that has worked for you. Well, let's come over and take a look at the half moon garden and the poolside planters. And over here, I will say that our elephant ears are getting super duper big. This one is looking fantastic. Our geraniums are getting big and our sun patience, so everything's really filling out in those pots. We still have some nice blooms on the rose here. That's the high voltage rose. And now we are seeing some wonderful blooms on the Wizard of Oz Veronica here. I love that color, isn't that pretty? Such a nice color of purple. And I hope these continue to fill out over the years so that we can get a really nice run of them here. You can see some of the new blooms on the penstemon that we planted after we deadheaded them. And I still do have some blueberries on this blueberry plant, so we'll see. I might get some fruits after all. The privet is probably in need of a quick trim up, so I will probably get that going soon. It looks really healthy though. It's just growing incredibly well. They're a very vigorous plant. We have some more blooms on these penstemon as well. I'm really looking forward to see what they do next year when they come back after the winter. I did cut back my lady's mantle here because they began to split open after we did get that rain. The blooms were pretty well done, but we're getting lots of new growth out of the center of them. On this side of the pool, we still have our dahlia planters, and they are starting to bloom their heads off. We've got lots and lots of dahlias over here. Now, I'm not real happy with the way that this red sand cherry or purple sand cherry bush is performing. I put it in that pot because it wasn't doing that great in the ground and the deer were eating it out front. So I might be getting rid of that because I can't really put it anywhere because it's not deer resistant. So maybe I'll be gifting that away. The hibiscus is looking really good. Super tall and full. Not as tall yet as last year, and I don't think it is going to get as tall. So I would say right now it's about 3 feet tall. Last year it was probably, about 4 feet tall and 5 feet wide. So it's probably about a foot smaller than it was last year. But I'm starting to see it looking like it's going to be putting on some buds for us. And once it starts blooming in July, it will bloom for several months. Wonderful, huge blooms of rose color, a deep dark pink. All right, well, our plantings took good from the other day. They are looking just fine, and everything's looking good in the Protege garden. I'll come back around here and give you a look at some of the planters that we have here, because the lobelia continues to be a star for me in the garden this year in terms of it continuing to look good and just be really pretty growing over the edges of the pots everywhere. And these two black pots have done much better after I took the grasses out of the center and just filled them up with some potting soil. Now back behind me, I can't help but show you my Potomac orange Snapdragons. Aren't these magnificent? Look at the color on those, you guys. Now I'm about to harvest them because otherwise I think they might fall over and tear themselves out of the soil. So I'm gonna take a bouquet of them, and then hopefully we'll start getting some additional blooms as they grow again up from the base. And we have another panicle hydrangea here that's got buds on it. I had to stake up my tomatoes a little bit higher because they are getting rather large, so let's just tuck this one in here. It looks like it kind of fell out. There we go. But you can see they're putting on some good tomatoes already down in here. And then we have the cherry tomatoes. These are the good-hearted tomatoes down here. All right, well, let's take a look at the ladybed over here, which continues to look pretty good. You can see how as the foxgloves grow without the rain, the old blooms just kind of dry up on the stem and don't look fantastic. So that's kind of why I've had to be cutting them back. And these don't look too bad, but the other ones look much worse. We have some beautiful buds on the Pinky Winky hydrangea, so I'm excited to see what that's going to do this year. And our daisy is opening up over here. And then we have the pink mink clematis, which is opening. And it really could use some water too, but look at all the buds on it. That's such a beautiful color. And it has much smaller blooms than mini clematis, but it still has this really romantic look to it, I think. Well, moving on to the front garden, this is our spirea on the side of the house, which is very happy in this spot. It has done great all spring. It's doing great now, and I'm really happy with having moved it. So I'm just glad I made that choice. Sometimes you just have to decide to give plants a go in a different area and see what happens. This garden bed looks nice. It's nice and simple, but also elegant, and I enjoy it very much. I do need to come through here and trim those boxwoods though. They're looking a bit scruffy at this point. Well, we have our beautiful little drumstick alliums. Aren't they cute? And they're just bobbing their heads along with the Verbena venerensis. We're getting some blooms on that now. Those are pretty, and those are such a pollinator magnet as well. The variegated sage plant is looking great. I'm hoping that will overwinter because that is a perennial. And the rosemary came through. Yeah, that was a fun one to kind of overwinter and try out with some cover, and it definitely made it through. Now this viburnum right here should get to be about 6 to 8 feet tall. So that one should get a lot taller than this low grow sumac, which is growing a little bit more than, well, I would say it's at its max height right now. But I could do with some trimming back just to kind of, you know, make it a little bit more dense. But it does have a really nice and interesting growth habit. It really suffers from like no diseases, no needs. It's so drought tolerant. I do recommend it if you're looking for something that just is a nice greenery plant. The Fothergilla is looking lovely. That's a blue shadow Fothergilla amongst the hostas here. And all of the big hostas are looking good in this garden bed. Some of them are Great Expectations. We just moved this one last week. We've got some humpback whales, I think, in here. We have some guacamoles in here. The golden edgers and lots of different types of hellebores. So these are just chugging along. I've only had to water them just the once so far, really. We're about to get some blooms on this bee balm here. You can start to see the tips just poking out. Isn't that cute? That's the Pardon My Cerise one. So this is the color it will be. Gonna be so pretty. And the opening act blush phlox right here is done much better here than it has in the back garden, and I think it's because it gets a little bit less sun. So just a tip if you are looking for different types of phlox, this blush does like a little bit more shade than some of the other varieties that I have grown. And you'll see we have 2 of the Cape Lookout hydrangeas here now, and I think it looks really pretty. right up here by the front porch. Yeah, I just like how this bed has turned out, and I can't even say enough how amazed I am that I have these hydrangea blooms here right now, and I'm really hoping they overwinter well because, well, if I can get the can-do one to come back and I can get these to come back and bloom well, I would definitely agree with everyone that we're in a new era of hydrangeas because my garden has not been kind to any of the large leaf hydrangeas, so we're giving it a go for sure this year. We're all in. The porch is looking good. Everything's filled out so nicely. You know, the impatiens are just spilling over the edges and the coleus is growing well. And our window box is filled out. Let's go look at the sun gardens. Well, here is the open expanse of the front garden, and then we come to the main sun garden island bed here, which I think looks pretty, even though many of the blooms have started to go over. So the dianthus have definitely come to a point where I need to come through and deadhead. But I think the iris foliage looks really nice against the boxwoods, and I do need to come in and deadhead the salvia as well now. Again, the dry and lack of rain has really led to a lot of things blooming, and then their flowers dry up much faster this year. So this oak leaf hydrangea probably has the most blooms on it of any of the oak leaf hydrangeas that I have. They're all the same kind. It's the jet stream hydrangea. You can see these blooms are a little bit smaller and the leaves are a little bit smaller than the ones that I have in the part shade, but definitely more flowers. We have some cone flowers with buds on them in here, and I'm starting to see the veronicas open up in this garden bed as well. So these were brand new. They were supposed to be out in garden centers, I think, this year. I have no idea how I managed to get my hands on them last year. They were actually on the clearance rack at Lowe's. These are called Ever After. And they're supposed to be one of the longer blooming varieties of veronica out there. So we'll have to keep our eye on them, knowing that they just started at the beginning of July, to see how long they actually bloom in comparison to some of the magic wand varieties. But I really like the color. And then we're starting to get the blooms opening on these goldfinch daisies right here, which are a much brighter yellow than some of the other colors in my garden. But once they open up, they're actually more of that buttery yellow. And these are kind of those fluffy like daisies, or frilly, I guess you might call them. And take a look close up at what the fringe on them might be like as they open. Definitely have lots of buds on our Bobo hydrangeas as well, so I think those are going to open up soon. So as we come around this side, you can see the crystal blue salvia is still blooming. And you can see the deep purple of that new salvia that we planted. And the scabiosa still just has that one bloom. One of them went away and we got one more, but we have lots of buds coming. Still no blooms on that viburnum, the wabi-sabi viburnum there. But if it's anything like the other viburnums I've grown, they really didn't bloom well until their third year in the ground. So I'm just going to try to be patient with it and see what happens. Next year could be the charm. You'll see I did have the deers come through and eat some of the hosta deers. There's no S on that. The deer came through and ate some of my hosta. So I've come through since and sprayed with some liquid fence. Oftentimes I'm asked, what kind of deer repellent I use, and I use a brand called Liquid Fence, and I usually get it off of Amazon. I think I put a link to it in my description if you want to try it out. It smells really horrible when you spray it on, but as it dries, it doesn't smell bad at all. Look at all of the buds that we have all over these Bobo hydrangeas. They are about ready to burst open, you guys. We have some Snapdragons back there. The sedums are looking great. And we have the seed heads on the Allium Schubertii still hanging out here looking cool. Just in time for the 4th of July. Yeah, just look at these. So many buds. Oh, I'm so excited. I love hydrangea season. All right, well, here we are on the other side of the driveway, and I'm just gonna take you on the back side so you can see what it looks like from the neighbor's side. You can see we have some pots and some gaura and some beautiful roses that they can see, and some nice lilies as well. These daylilies have nice buds on them. And again, I do have to spray them to keep the deer from eating them, but here's the gaura that we planted, what was it, maybe a week or two ago? It's starting to bloom already, so that's exciting. It definitely does not need that much water at all once they get growing. This garden bed, I think it looks really pretty still. Our new spirea is thriving, and we have more gaura down here at the end of the garden bed. And you can see this front one is just starting to get ready to bloom, but we've had blooms on the one in the back for quite some time now, and they just dance in the wind. It's so pretty. And the pollinators love them, which is always a reason to have a flower. We're starting to get some upward growth on this weeping crabapple here, which is great. I love to see that. I've been trying to trim up the bottom to help encourage it to grow up a bit. And the coneflowers, you guys, wow, July is gonna be coneflower month because they are just smothered in buds all throughout this garden bed wherever they are. And I want to get you guys kind of an up close of these planters back here because I love the way that they look, but I want you to be able to see them a little closer up. We have the osteospermum in here, that is the purple. Isn't that beautiful? Love that. And then next to it, the lobelia. It's such a beautiful contrast, right? The geums still have not bloomed in here. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if they're just not going to bloom at all for me or what, or if they're waiting for some more heat. They look nice and healthy, so I guess we'll see. And finally, back here, a couple of our boxwoods that we transplanted and then we hit the drought are looking a little bit worse for the wear. Hopefully they'll be okay. But this Liatris hedge, I thought it would be open this week, but it's just starting to, at some of the tips of the flowers, to open. And you can see that pink purple color. But look at the PG hydrangea standard, you guys. I cannot believe how big it is this year. Last year I was getting a little concerned that it didn't get enough sun in this spot, but boy, it seems real happy this year, so it must have done something good to establish its roots. And they're all starting to open. It's quite amazing to me. It seems like this is actually an earlier bloomer than the quickfire hydrangea this year, which is interesting, because this is one that has been around for many, many years. So pretty. And these ferns are now a good 5 feet tall, pretty much as tall as me. They are absolutely gorgeous. This is the royal fern, and they can take sun as long as they have plenty of water, and they're by, you know, a gutter here, so they definitely get that and really love their life. And over to our left here, we have the Dreamland geranium with its beautiful light pink blooms, just kind of dancing in the wind as well. And a strawberry Sunday hydrangea with buds all over it. The deer did get a couple of nibbles on this one as well, but I hit this one with the spray also, so it should be good to go. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the tour of the garden today. I sure enjoyed walking through it with you and checking out some of the blooms. I had no idea the Verbena bonariensis was blooming already. It's great to see. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bye!